Early autumn is my best season for driving. I'm 43, a regional sales manager covering 3 states, and most of my work happens between places, client sites, hotels, parking lots lit like aquariums. The interstate is routine for me. I prefer night driving because traffic thins out and my calls don't get interrupted by brake lights and bottlenecks. My SUV was new that year, well-maintained, lane assist calibrated, adaptive cruise that held a steady speed without effort. Highway time, for me, is functional. Podcast on low, coffee in the console, hands light on the wheel. If you want more realistic accounts like this, you can subscribe and keep these drives with me. I set cruise control at exactly 72 and let the road do what it always did. Stretch forward, smooth and obedient, with the low, consistent hum of tires under a dark, open sky. I was coming back from a client visit in western Pennsylvania, aiming for a hotel outside Columbus. I'd run slightly late. Nothing dramatic, just a meeting that dragged and a last-minute photo of a display rack I didn't want to forget. The fastest route was the interstate, but my GPS offered a rural connector that would shave off 20 minutes. I took it without thinking much about it. Traffic was sparse but not strange. An occasional semi, long gaps of empty road, then another cluster of taillights dissolving into distance. At 10:47 p.m., my interior glowed soft blue from the dash. On Highway 250, near mile marker 183, I noticed a dark sedan merge behind me from a rest area exit and settle into the lane like it had been waiting. At first, it was ordinary. A car behind you, same direction, same speed, nothing to hold in memory. But it stayed behind me longer than I expected for that stretch of road. It kept a consistent distance, far enough not to be a problem, close enough to be present. Not tailgating, not drifting away, just held. I passed a slower truck on a 2-lane section posted at 65. The sedan stayed back, then, after a delay that felt measured, shifted lanes and mirrored my move. Its headlights in my rearview held the same brightness, never flaring, never fading. I told myself it was coincidence. Limited traffic does that. People end up moving together. Over the next 20 miles, it became something I could track. I lowered my speed to 68 without any reason except curiosity. A minute later, the sedan closed the gap slightly, restoring the same distance it had kept before. It wasn't aggressive. It was corrective, like a system returning to a set point. I took an exit and looped through a gas station lot without stopping. The canopy lights flickered above pump number 4, bright and unreliable. My tires crossed the rumble strips with a hollow echo that felt louder than it should have. The sedan passed slowly while I was in the lot. Then, when I re-entered the highway, it reappeared behind me as if nothing had changed, settling into the same place. If you enjoy slow-burn, realistic horror, a like tells me you want more of it. The pattern wasn't dramatic. That was the problem. It was quiet, measurable, and unforced by traffic or weather. I started testing it the way I'd test a glitch in my own driving habits. I signaled right, canceled it, then signaled left. The sedan didn't react instantly. It waited, then signaled left. My chest tightened, not from fear exactly, but from recognition. The consistency was intentional. There were miles of open road. No traffic pressure. No reason for synchronization. The soft click of my turn signal filled the cabin, too crisp in the silence. I adjusted the rearview mirror slightly downward to reduce glare, and the sedan's lights stayed where they were, steady in the new angle. It hit me then that I wasn't being chased. I was being observed, studied at a controlled distance. Ahead, the highway narrowed into a long construction zone with no active crews. No floodlights. No machinery. Just dark lanes pinched by concrete barriers, orange barrels spaced every 30 feet, and the sense of being guided into a corridor with no shoulder and no exit. The sound changed immediately, tires louder, air more compressed, the road noise amplified by walls on both sides. The sedan accelerated and pulled alongside me within the confined lanes. It didn't surge past. It matched my speed precisely and stayed in my blind spot. I eased off the accelerator. It eased with me. I pressed gently back up. It held position. For nearly a mile we traveled side by side, boxed in by barriers, with nowhere to drift away and nowhere for me to create space. The driver's window was down despite the cold. I couldn't see the face clearly, just the suggestion of a head shape against darkness, no phone glow, no interior light. The car's movement was smooth, controlled, as if the driver wasn't checking mirrors at all. I kept my eyes forward and my hands steady, letting lane assist do its small corrections, refusing to give the moment more energy than it already had. Then, at the end of the construction zone, the sedan dropped back abruptly and took the next exit without signaling, disappearing into black the way a thought slips away when you try to examine it. I kept driving. I didn't speed. I didn't take the bait of turning it into a chase, because that would have required emotion I didn't want to feel yet. My hands stayed steady on the wheel. I told myself it had been careless curiosity, a bored driver playing with distance in the only interesting part of an empty night. I avoided the next 2 exits on purpose, watching my mirrors more than the road deserved. When I finally pulled into a brightly lit truck stop, I parked near the entrance under harsh white lights and turned the engine off. Cold air hit my face as I stepped out, the sound of idling rigs around me like a low, constant surf. My receipt timestamp later read 11:36 p.m. I held it longer than I needed to, as if the printed time could anchor what had happened to something normal. In the hotel room, I reviewed the dashcam footage out of quiet curiosity, the way I'd review an expense report for errors. The laptop fan whirred in the silence. The file was labeled trip_09-14_22-31, a clean name for something that didn't feel clean anymore. What bothered me wasn't the construction zone clip. That looked exactly as I remembered. 2 cars parallel, barriers, no shoulder, then separation. The unsettling part was earlier. The sedan's headlights appeared on the recording several miles before the rest area exit, where I thought I'd first seen it. At one point, long before I noticed it, its lights dimmed briefly, then returned to full brightness, like someone toggling a switch to check whether I was watching. No license plate was readable in any frame. I still drive for work. I still prefer night highways. I just don't use rural connectors after 10 p.m., and I don't set cruise at 72 anymore. What unsettles me isn't what the driver did, but the restraint. How precise it was, how patient. I can live with reckless people. I can't place people who move like they're calibrating you. Sometimes, when the road behind me is empty, it looks darker than it should, like it's waiting to fill in. Cruise control now sits at 69, never 72. If you know someone who appreciates grounded horror, share this with them, and subscribe for the next account. Late winter is when the highways in Iowa feel most honest. I'm 45, a corporate compliance auditor, and most weeks I'm driving between distribution centers across the Midwest. Long-distance solo driving is simply part of the job. I plan my routes meticulously, build in fuel stops, log mileage down to the decimal. Rural state highways at dusk feel efficient and predictable. No congestion, no surprises. Just gray sky fading evenly into flat farmland, the road cutting straight lines through it. If you prefer realistic accounts like this, you're welcome to subscribe and stay with me on these drives. That evening my company's sedan showed 38,412 miles on the odometer. I remember noting it before shifting into drive. I was traveling from Des Moines to a warehouse outside Cedar Rapids. The GPS suggested a county highway shortcut to avoid minor roadwork on the main route. It would save perhaps 15 minutes. That was enough for me. County Highway V48 was sparse but not empty. Occasional farm equipment, a few pickup trucks heading the opposite direction, nothing unusual. The wind brushed across open fields with no tree cover, pushing lightly against the sedan. About 20 minutes in, I noticed a white utility van parked on the gravel shoulder, facing my direction of travel. It was angled slightly toward the road, as if ready to merge. No hazard lights. No visible markings. I passed it without slowing. Vehicles idle on rural shoulders all the time. Roughly 10 miles later, I passed what appeared to be the same white utility van again. It sat in nearly the same orientation, angled toward the pavement, front wheels slightly turned. No company logo. No ladder rack. Plain white panel sides. My speed held steady at 63 miles per hour, tires humming over patched asphalt seams. I told myself it was common enough. Fleet vehicles look identical. Perhaps multiple contractors were servicing something along that corridor. Still, the placement felt deliberate, not random breakdown. Positioned. Over the next 40 minutes, I passed that van 3 more times. Each time it appeared ahead of me, never behind. The spacing between sightings began to feel mathematically inconsistent. I was on a single continuous road. No loops. No side detours on my GPS display. Once, the driver's side door looked slightly ajar. The next time, it was firmly closed. I never saw a driver through the windshield or rear glass. The van never appeared to merge into traffic, and yet it was always ahead of me. Dying daylight flattened everything, the fields, the fence lines, the road itself. Depth perception felt reduced, like driving across a photograph. If you appreciate slow burn, realistic tension, a like tells me to continue sharing these drives. The last time I saw it before dark was near mile marker 27. I began calculating distance between sightings versus my average speed. At 63 miles per hour, covering 10 miles takes under 10 minutes. There were no visible crossroads substantial enough for a vehicle to leapfrog ahead without passing me. The numbers didn't reconcile. Either there were identical vans spaced deliberately along V48, or the same vehicle was repositioning ahead of me without my seeing it do so. The fuel gauge flickered briefly at 1/4 tank. I had planned to stop soon. Instead, I decided not to. I had an estimated 38 miles remaining to my destination. Enough. I preferred to reach town before pulling over anywhere isolated. Night settled fully over the farmland. The two-lane stretch ahead had no shoulders now, just narrow margins and drainage ditches beyond. I crested a small hill and saw the white van stop partially in my lane. No hazard lights. No reflective triangles. It was angled slightly, occupying enough of the road to require a decision. I braked firmly but controlled. The ABS pulsed through the pedal in a measured vibration. No skid. My dashboard clock read 7:18 p.m. The van remained motionless. Through the rear windows I saw only darkness. No silhouette in the driver's seat. No cabin glow. Just empty shapes. I eased left, inching into the oncoming lane. There were no headlights approaching. I passed slowly, close enough to see inside through the side window. The interior appeared empty. No driver, no passenger, no movement. The steering wheel was centered. The moment my rear bumper cleared its front end, headlights flared on behind me. I checked the mirror. The van was directly aligned in the lane now, fully straight, moving. No delay. No visible correction. It followed at a steady speed, as if it had never been stopped at all. I maintained my speed. The urge to accelerate was immediate, but unnecessary. If it wanted to catch me, it could. The van followed at a long but deliberate distance, neither closing nor drifting back. The first visible town lights appeared ahead, dim sodium glows against low cloud cover. At the intersection of V48 and Route 151, I stopped at a red traffic signal. Wet pavement reflected the signal in a thin crimson band. In my rearview mirror, the van waited 2 car lengths back. When the light turned green, I proceeded straight. The van turned right without signaling and disappeared down a darker side road. I did not look for it again. Later, in my hotel room, I reviewed my route history and timestamps. The trip log entry saved at 9:02 p.m. confirmed continuous travel along V48. No deviations, no extended stops. Based on mileage and time, the van could not have repositioned ahead of me without overtaking at some point. I would have seen it pass. I would have remembered. I checked local fleet companies online. No matching vehicles in the area listed that night. No service alerts. No reported breakdowns. The hotel HVAC clicked on and off in short, irregular bursts while I recalculated distances that still refused to make sense. I still take rural highways. They're efficient, and efficiency is part of my job. I just don't let the fuel gauge drop below half anymore. What unsettles me isn't pursuit. It's placement. The van never chased me. It was simply ahead, as if it knew where I would be. The next morning, the odometer still read 38,412 miles, unchanged, like nothing had interrupted the drive. If you know someone who appreciates grounded, realistic horror, share this with them and subscribe for the next account. Early summer, I was 42 and recently divorced, driving west to start a new operations role. The move wasn't dramatic. It was administrative, new office, new lease, fewer shared rooms. My sedan was packed minimally, just clothing, files, and a coffee maker wrapped in a towel. I prefer structured travel days, fixed departure times, mapped fuel stops, predictable mileage targets. I avoid interstates late at night and choose smaller highways instead. Calmer traffic, fewer sudden merges. The trip felt transitional but practical, like closing one spreadsheet and opening another. Warm air drifted through the slightly open driver's side window, carrying dry desert heat. If you value realistic accounts like this, you can subscribe and continue these drives with me. A temporary paper tag was taped inside my rear windshield, edges curling slightly from the heat. I was crossing eastern New Mexico late, planning to reach Albuquerque by morning. Services were sparse for long stretches. Gas stations every 50 or 60 miles, sometimes less. Highway 285 felt long and unvaried, the horizon fixed and low. At 9:54 p.m., I passed a digital road sign flashing "Report drunk drivers" in amber text. The message lingered longer than it should have. A few miles later, I noticed headlights far ahead on the shoulder, facing toward me. Wrong direction. Not angled for a U-turn, fully facing oncoming traffic. Insects struck the windshield intermittently, tiny impacts that sounded louder in the open quiet. I assumed someone had pulled off and misjudged their alignment. The vehicle's headlights remained on high beam as I approached. There were no hazard lights, no reflective triangles, no silhouette visible in the driver's seat. Just brightness directed straight into the lane. I passed cautiously without slowing too much. In the rearview mirror, I saw the headlights turn off at the exact moment I cleared them. Not dimming off. The shoulder vanished into darkness instantly. There was a 2-mile gap to the next visible reflector sign. I told myself the driver was conserving battery or avoiding glare. A stalled car in the desert at night is a practical problem, not a mystery. 15 minutes later, as the road curved gently right, I saw headlights ahead again. Same orientation. Facing me from the shoulder. Same intensity, same angle relative to the bend. It took a second for recognition to register. Over the next 40 miles, it happened 3 more times. Always ahead of me. Always positioned just beyond a curve or slight rise. No crossroads sufficient for a quick turnaround. No visible dust trails. I saw only one other moving vehicle the entire stretch, a pickup heading east. The outside temperature read 82 degrees Fahrenheit. The open desert wind pressed lightly against the car, steady and unremarkable. If you appreciate slow burn, realistic tension, a like lets me know to keep sharing these accounts. By the 3rd repetition, it no longer felt random. It felt measured. I began slowing before each curve, anticipating what I would see. My body reacted before my thoughts aligned, hands tightening on the wheel, breathing shallow but controlled. I watched the horizon instead of the road markers. The pattern was too evenly spaced, each appearance separated by nearly identical mileage. It felt less like a stranded motorist and more like a checkpoint, except no one flagged me down. The rhythmic blink of my right turn signal filled the cabin as I considered pulling onto the shoulder and waiting. I didn't. The GPS showed 96 miles to Albuquerque. I preferred forward motion. On a long straight stretch with no visible turns or dips, I saw the vehicle clearly for the first time. It wasn't just on the shoulder. It was stopped partially in my lane, facing me, headlights off. There was no shoulder wide enough to bypass comfortably. Gravel sloped downward beyond a narrow strip of pavement. I reduced speed gradually, down to 20 miles per hour, then lower. My pulse became audible in the silence once I eased off the accelerator. At 12 miles per hour, I approached within 50 yards. The vehicle remained motionless, centered slightly into my lane. Windows dark. No movement. Just before I reached it, the headlights ignited at full beam. The glare was immediate and total, white filling the windshield, obliterating depth. I could see nothing beyond it. Instinctively, I edged right, tires scraping the boundary between asphalt and loose gravel. The car's stability control pulsed faintly under my foot. The vehicle did not move toward me. It did not honk. It simply held position. I counted 2 slow breaths. When my vision cleared seconds later, the lane ahead was empty. No taillights retreating. No dust plume from a sudden turn. No side road or driveway within sight. Just a long, straight highway under a flat night sky. My speed remained at 12 miles per hour for several seconds before I trusted the road again. I continued driving without stopping until I reached a lit service plaza nearly 40 minutes later. I circled the lot once before parking, scanning for any vehicle with similar proportions. There were 3 sedans and a delivery truck. None matched. Fluorescent canopy lights buzzed overhead, casting a steady, sterile glow. I sat inside the locked car for several minutes, engine off, hands resting loosely on the steering wheel. No vehicle resembling the one I had seen entered the lot. No headlights approached from the highway. My gas receipt printed at 11:08 p.m. I folded it carefully and placed it in the console as if documentation could stabilize the sequence of events. Later in the hotel room, I reviewed the route on a digital map. Long sections of Highway 285 showed no accessible shoulders wide enough for discrete turnarounds. Any reversal of direction would have required a visible U-turn across open pavement. I never saw one. The spacing between sightings was nearly identical when measured against my odometer. My trip odometer read 312.6 miles for the day. The intervals aligned more precisely than coincidence would suggest. Hotel curtains shifted slightly from the air conditioner's airflow. The movement was subtle but repetitive, like something pacing. I finished the move without further incident. I adjusted to the new role, new routines, new routes. I no longer drive desert highways at night if I can avoid it. What stays with me isn't fear. It's symmetry. Headlights positioned as if expecting me at fixed intervals, anticipating my arrival rather than reacting to it. The morning after I reached Albuquerque, I removed the temporary paper tag from the rear windshield. If you know someone who appreciates grounded horror rooted in reality, share this with them and subscribe for the next account.